What's going on, everybody? Nick Lawson here from Squad Sports. Doing a really quick video here. This one is about 2020. The new year's coming up. I know everybody's doing some recaps, some predictions. We'll be doing some ourselves here, but wanted to make this video to make a few predictions. As you know, if you follow my content or just sponsorship in general, sports is drastically changing in its landscape. And again, I chatted about this in our tip of the week not too long ago, but think about 2009 and 2010 until today, how much that's rapidly changed within a decade. As I'm getting older, as I'm getting in the game, I'm starting to learn a decade's not that long. It comes by, comes fast. And there's some really important moments for your sports team to really harness to make sure you're successful throughout the decade. So these are my top 5 things you should be looking at for 2020 and just overall trends. I think the teams that engage with these tactics are going to win over the next year, over the next 3 years, over the next 5 years. And we just wanted to get it on video. To be honest, to state these and see how many of them come true. I'm sure some of these are going to be failures, but definitely maybe for a brief minute worth your time to really explore. So without further ado, the number one thing that you all should be looking at as a trend that you'll see across the board in sports is that teams will own their distribution channels through digital. I talked about this in the tip of the week not too long ago on a video I posted, but unlike in 2009, unlike in 2001, teams have access more than ever before to be able to own their distribution outlets. And by that I mean they own the content and produce the content themselves that they put out. Many times it was done by the league, done by cable, done by different things. Teams now have things like Facebook Watch, Facebook Live, IGTV, TikTok, where they can actually create content, distribute it themselves. And I think that's hugely important in sponsorship. And you'll see some of the more innovative teams, which could be you, harnessing this coming into the next decade, just because a couple things. One, they can control the content that they're putting out. Number two, those people start to really follow their team and maybe not a league or a player, which has been interesting to see how players have really owned that distribution of their own content on that shift. So first thing there, teams will own the content that they distribute. And it will make it so that on the sponsorship side, you have way more inventory. Nobody's cutting into that deal, way more successful. So number one is teams will own the distribution channels, put out the content themselves, and really own their viewership, their reach, and their audience. The number two thing, and I've talked about this on tip of the week as well, is texting. Texting is becoming big just overall within advertising, talking to customers, reaching customers. I went to a great chat with Twilio the other day just on how brands are really engaging. I never thought I'd be a person who would be engaged with a brand via text, but I am. The nice thing and the great thing about text is you're earning a phone number and you have an engaged audience, so that next time the social media platform shifts, whether it's from IG to TikTok, whether it's from TikTok to something else, the next time something shifts like that, you have a unshiftable asset. And by that I mean you have their text message phone number. I don't think phone numbers are going away anytime soon unless there's a startup that's going to break in and really change that. You'll have access to an audience that you don't have to rely on reach numbers. Let's say if TikTok starts bringing their reach down, or Facebook or Instagram really start bringing their reach down, you have a phone number. So I think text in regard to sponsorship is going to be a great distribution channel moving forward on that end. Again, we've chatted about some campaigns, but one that always comes to my head is having fans text in to get the best recommendations for a pregame meal, whether it's home or away. And then you're giving them content. Obviously, have restaurants that can be sponsored on that side, but you're giving them content, really engaging and connecting with them. So text is something that you really need to look at as a platform in order to engage fans. We use it on ticketing. I think it can be used even more powerfully in sports sponsorship. So make sure text is on your game plan for 2020, especially on the early days. The number 3 thing to really look at, and this is kind of what we do at Squad, and if you haven't noticed from these videos, these are some items from some of our great clients, but what intrigues us and what really drives us at Squad is Stadium Signage 2.0. I think a lot of people have seen digital as outside of stadium for sponsorship in particular. I think a lot of people have thought, oh, we'll just do a sponsored tweet or game highlight. That's really going to get that out. What we have in our stadiums are gold. We have a captivated audience that brands want to connect with, passionate fans in a way they connect with them. In no other place, right? If you look at maybe in-stadium signage compared to right now 1.0, where it's just a static sign compared to a billboard, the reason why it's much more powerful is because I have your attention much more in a stadium than I do, say, walking down the street. But with that being said, we've chatted about this a ton on the Inches podcast and on here. In-stadium signage is not going to cut it into the next decade. It's a passive asset, not an active asset. It's not really trackable, and brands are demanding trackability from you and your assets. So with that being said, moving into 2020, things like a scoreboard trivia, mobile scratchers. I love the sort of AR, VR stuff that's coming out, but having more active assets, I like to call it in-stadium signage 2.0. It's just an evolution of 1.0, and really it's giving trackability and more engagement to your sponsors, and your sponsors are gonna say yes to that. So as we look at our stadiums on event, as we notice that brands aren't really paying for those static in-stadium signage as much as they used to, and they're asking more questions about their trackability. In-stadium signage 2.0, adding a digital engagement piece to it is going to be a huge trend you're going to see. I would love to see stadiums, and what we're doing at Squad is pushing stadiums to become digital playgrounds for fans as they go and engage. So this trend, number 3 trend, is just in-stadium signage 2.0. If you have static signage, try to find trackability and engagement pieces to it. And build that up, and understand that your Stadium 1.0 assets aren't going to be as valuable as they were before. Number 4, and this is an intriguing one to me because I don't think it's being done enough in sponsorship. It's being done decently well in ticketing, but that's segmenting our marketing messages to fans. In sponsorship, what we've always done is we've done a blanketed statement just to all of our fans. Hey, fans, you're a team name fans, that's insert team name here, you're a team name fan, you should head up this car dealership when you're looking for a car, or you should head up this restaurant or these services or this beer company, right? And it's just an overall blanketed statement. The difference between this decade coming up and the back half of this decade and last decade, and the biggest thing in digital sponsorship, is the ability to have data to segment. We have so much data on our fans. We've earned so much data through ticketing, through digital activations, some of which through Stadium 2.0, as I was just talking about. Why do we continue to blanket that message toward fans? We need to be more customized and segmented with our messaging, because brands can do segmented messaging on Facebook ads. They can do these things without you. So when you look at benefits, cost and benefit of a sponsorship, if you can do something more segmented that has better results, because segmentation has shown to have better results on that end than not. If we know that's a fact, and brands know that's a fact, if we don't have segmentation in our marketing for sponsors, then how can we expect to be successful? So with that being said, number 4, really look at segmentation. I think the great teams are going to understand their data, be able to get more segmented messages out, localized with the local car dealership, not the overall car dealership. Segmented with, let's say you won a free taco because we kept everybody under 98 points, only segmenting that message to those fans with follow-up messaging. We have to be better about how we chat and connect our brands and our sponsors to our fans moving forward. I think a big trend in the teams that will win over 2020 will have better segmentation, understand their data that they're capturing, and be able to segment a better message over to those fans, and therefore have their assets be 10 times more valuable, just because it hasn't really been done in sports sponsorship. Again, we blanket statement a lot of our messaging. Let's change that for 2020. I think the brands and the teams that do for their brands do that and put that into the packages will be more successful. And last but not least, a huge untapped thing, but one of the most powerful things in all of digital marketing and advertising and overall advertising today is retargeting. I would argue retargeting is the game changer for advertising for last decade. That was the biggest shift. Obviously people are on their phones and engaging, but the ability that when somebody visits your website that you can hit them and get another at bat with that message is game changing. It brings down your cost per click, it increases your conversion rate, it keeps top of mind better than just blitzing them with overall, let's say, content or a signage. There's nothing better than data, understanding your data and retargeting them on that. And we've seen success with teams like the Portland Winterhawks with brands of doing a contest, taking those emails, retargeting them on Facebook based on certain attributes that either Facebook knows or we know, and then being able to get them messaging to get another at bat for the team as well as for the brand. This needs to be in your assets for the next year. Again, when we talk about who we compete with, and I had a great conversation with somebody who works for an NBA team the other day, and the big thing is you're not really competing, and we've chatted about this as well at Squad and some of the content, you're not competing with other teams, other entertainment and sponsorship for you, maybe for like more dollars or less dollars. But if a brand decides to do a sponsorship, usually it's with a lot of the teams or entertainment entities in the area. You are competing today with digital ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Snapchat ads. Whenever TikTok comes out with ads, you'll be competing with those digital ads every day. As soon as you understand that, you'll understand how you need to shift your assets. And brands are telling us this. As I chat with some of our clients, with some of the sponsors, the decision really comes down to, am I gonna spend more with my agency on digital ads, or if they do it in-house, or I'm gonna spend more on, on the sponsorship. And that is a key thing, that your assets need to have some of the same traits moving forward into 2020 that these digital ads have, so that you can even be in the equation, in the conversation. Rich and I have chatted about it on the Inches podcast. There are digital buckets where we've seen as high as 60% of ad spend or digital budgets or ad budgets are reserved for digital. That means you can't even touch it if you don't have things like retargeting on that end. So the last thing, number 5, that you really need to look for in 2020 as a sponsorship department is, how can I be able to take this and retarget my fans, get more at-bats and more connections with our sponsor to our fan, other than just relying on they'll come back to the next game. Sponsorship now, team messaging is a 24/7, 365 thing. If you're not on it and pushing that messaging, then somebody else is, and you're not in control of that. Retargeting allows you in off hours, not non-game days, things like that, to target somebody, also with segmented messaging, just like I said in number 4. But if you build retargeting into your packages, into how you do things, into your game plan with the data you're collecting, and into what you're presenting to sponsors, it's a no-brainer. So those are the 5 things. I'll break them down again. Number 1, teams will own their distribution channels going into 2020, and the teams that do, the teams that really take that to heart, are going to be more successful, because they'll be able to produce content and add sponsors as they please, plus they'll make more money on that end. The number 2 is text will be a bigger part and something that you need to have in 2020 as a distribution outlet. So start building up those text lists and those number lists today with great content, not spammy content, things that are actually going to help fans. Number 3 is in-stadium signage 2.0. Really think about how currently we have passive assets, meaning they're just there, they're for overall branding. It's not a huge problem, but how can we get them over to 2.0? How can we get them more engaging, capturing data, all of those things? Number 3 is more marketing segmented messaging. So more segmented messaging to our fans from our sponsors, understanding and utilizing the data to make a more segmented message to increase those conversions and help our sponsors out and increase the likelihood that they'll engage, instead of the blanketed statements that we do a lot of times in stadiums. And number 5, I think is the most important: understand retargeting, understand the data you have, understand that you need to have it in your sponsorship packages. Start setting up things today to make retargeting a big piece of how you do things operationally for your sponsors to get another at-bat with them. Those are the things to look for in 2020. I'm excited to look back at this video, see how many things I was right on, see how many things I was wrong on. But really, these are just things that are happening in digital advertising and advertising in general. There's no reason why we can't shift and become even more powerful in sports and leverage the brands we've built for hundreds of years with our teams and our fans, and able to, in order to be more sufficient, give our sponsors a better chance to make the package successful and have sports sponsorship be the upper echelon of ways that you can advertise. Would love your comments below. Shoot me some comments, whether it's on YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever that may be. Would love to hear your thoughts on that. But remember, in 2020, for the entire decade, don't be complacent. Keep pushing those limits within sports sponsorship.